Assalamualaikum and a very good day to all present today. Welcome to the second round of English debate competition InterVarsity Science e-Debate Challenge 2021. The motion for this debate is this House will grant human rights to sentient robots. Our now introduce the debaters to you. Acting as the government team for this debate is the team from UniKLB with Ms. Faseha as the Prime Minister, Ms. Edina as the Deputy Prime Minister, Ms. Shahira as the Government Whip. Acting as the opposition team for this debate is the team from UM with Ms. Catherine Elisha Nathan as the opposition leader, Mr. Danish Ram Agarwal as the second opposition speaker, Mr. Kuhan Karti as the opposition whip. Our panel of adjudicators consists of Mr. Muhammad Nur Amir bin Abdul Rahman from UKM, Ms. Kabila Ganasan from UKM KL. Now we come to our debate today. To open the case from the government team, I call upon the Prime Minister to start the debate session.
Yeah.
In 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, imagine being able to feel sad, happy, having to able to distinguish the difference between right or wrong, but being discriminated by the other kind just because you're a piece of metal. Assalamu alaikum and good morning, I bid to all. Now, today's motion, this House would grant human rights to sentient robots. We as the government agree with this motion. Now, in the current world, sentient robots who have consciousness, who can think right or wrongs, are not given rights, just like how we are given. They're only being treated as mere slaves, just to perform their task, and that's it. Ladies and gentlemen, do you know how this can bring harm for our stakeholders here? Our stakeholders here as the sentient robots and our humankind. By treating them like slavery, only misusing them, in the long term, our humankind are going to suffer. These robots who have sentient feelings, who have consciousness, they are bound to, we do not want them to, in our world, we do not want them to turn their backs against us. That is how the current world is like. People are misusing these robots, treating them like slavery, only using them for such, which is why we, in our current world, we want to grant them rights just like human are. The human rights, why? We want to avoid humans to misuse these robots. They're not mere toys, ladies and gentlemen. They're not mere metal. They have feelings. That's how AI has developed. That's how machine learning, deep learning, Turing tests have developed. We as creators, we're supposed to give welfare for them, ladies and gentlemen, which is what we want. In the long term, it can benefit us as humankind and the robots too, because we do not want to start a robotic and versus human war, ladies and gentlemen. That is the world we want, because in the long term, we have to think in the long term. When robots, just like us, we have feelings, and we are treating them just like mere slaves and toys, misusing them, they are bound to turn their backs against us because they know what's right and wrong. But we have a mechanism to propose when it comes to giving them rights. There are restrictions when it comes to rights. Just like how a foreigner comes to a country, they have their certain rights, like rights of freedom of culture, freedom of living, freedom of slavery. That is what we want, ladies and gentlemen. Our world, we want a world where humans and robots can live harmony without turning their backs against each other. Our mechanism here is that sentient robots must be designed to be trustworthy and compatible to social, such as knowing their ethics and be aware of legal rights. Now, we as the government team, we will prove to you how by giving rights to sentient robots that have feelings, will advantage our stakeholders in the long term. Our stakeholders, as I said, humankind and sentient robots. Now, the opposition must not bring up the cost and the technical law that should be enforced, because we know trying to bring up a new rights requires time. Now, for the long-term and short-term effect, why we want to bring this mechanism, I've already said it. As in the long term, we do not want to start human cyber war, human robot war. We don't want humans to misuse robots that have consciousness. They can think what's right and wrong, and we do not want robots to turn their backs against us humans. Now, hopefully you're clear about that. Now, we believe that you are clear about that, which I would like to go to my argument. Why giving rights to sentient robots that have feelings and consciousness, we are able to promote better life interactions and relationships. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, robots, as humans also, we have feelings. We do not like people torturing us, handing us things, mistreating us, using belittled words. That's how these robots are too, ladies and gentlemen. We, as the creators, have designed them to be like that. We should provide welfare for them. We should respect them too. They need their rights too. Which is why we believe the reason for our argument here is our stakeholders, ladies and gentlemen. We want both our stakeholders to benefit from this in the long run. Everyone, ladies and gentlemen, do you know a movie? It's a Tamil movie. It's called Enduran. Where the creator, he builds a robot, and this robot at first, he does everything his creator does. His creator tells him to do. This robot, he tells him, he has consciousness, he has sentient feelings. At one point, his creator starts belittling him, saying that you're just a mere creation of mine. How dare you talk above me? And this robot went against his back and caused chaos. Now, from this movie, I have realized that how much it can impact our future, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe not now, but in the future, when we treat them as mere slaves, as mere maids, we can see, without giving them the right of freedom to speak, thoughts, right of torture, and freedom from slavery, freedom from torture. Which is why we are proposing here, ladies and gentlemen, on the long term.
Point?
No, thank you. Now, why? Sure. Okay. We believe that from this movie, as I said, we know that, just like how foreigners, example here, Malaysia, oftentimes there are people who treat foreigners as if they are puppets. And at some point, these people have feelings too, which goes the same to the sentient robots. We treat them as puppets. One point, they're going to turn us to puppets. And we do not want that, ladies and gentlemen. Now, if the robots do not receive a better treatment, that is what, to sum up, with that, I rest my case.
Can I start? What?
Yeah, you can start.
Okay. Panel, sentience does not mean human experience, and the human experience is what is unique that allows us to grant human rights for individuals. I'm going to structure my speech by first telling you a few rebuttals that don't really fit into the substantive part of my speech. Then I'm later going to set up what these human rights are and the status of human rights around the world, because I think the speaker before me just asserted these human rights and did nothing to characterize what these rights are. I'm then going to tell you what the world of opposition looks like, and on a principal argument, why sentience does not equate to human experience and thus does not warrant us granting rights to these robots. Firstly, in regards to rebuttal, I have two. Firstly, the mechanism asserted that these sentient robots must be programmed to be trustworthy and conscious. I think this means to some extent that they must be empathetic. I think this debate takes into account the status of robots right now and in the future, right? Right now, these robots do not have these feelings at all. I think it's extremely difficult to program basic feelings such as what is stated in the info site, for example, anger or happiness. This is why only a limited amount of robots are able to have these feelings programmed into them. So I don't know why this is necessarily true, but even in the future, the speaker before me did nothing to prove that this will be true, that we are even capable of programming these type of feelings into these robots. So at the end of the day, this is an assertion at best. I think someone is unmuted. Secondly, in regards to their long-term impact and in terms of a war and uprising that will happen between humans and robots, again, I don't know why this is true to any extent. This is an assertion because there's nothing to prove that there will be feelings of resentment within these robots, something which is very complex in of itself, and there's nothing to prove that this will actually happen. But even if robots become a threat, I think at the end of the day, we can just turn them off and then this war won't really happen. Into my setup, what are these human rights and the status of human rights around this world? We think human rights are the interaction and access that we give entities that are specific to humans, right? And this is just beyond sentience. These are things like obligations, responsibilities, our interdependence with the ecosystem, and our impermanence, which means our mortality. In regards to this, these are the unique things that humans have that allows us to grant human rights for us. This is not to say that other entities don't have rights. We think other entities like animals do have rights, especially animals that we keep as pets. These are rights like not abusing them and not hurting them. So we're not saying that sentient robots should not be given rights completely, but they should not, at the end of the day, be given human rights. Sentience does not guarantee human experience. We also think that the spectrum of human rights also exists, where humans in society are not granted rights. Countries like Afghanistan and Saudi Arabia, for example, discriminate against people of different races or gender and do not grant them the same rights as other people. We think these are more pertinent issues that we should solve first, rather than granting rights to robots who have never had this type of human experience. Second setup, what does the world of opposition look like? I think we can be mindful of sentience, so we can be mindful of the wishes that robots can express. For example, if they're sad, we can be mindful of this and take this into consideration. I think at the end of the day, if the government's problem is that we are overworking these robots, we can also then just build more mechanical components, robots that don't have this sentience, and overwork them because they don't have feelings, they don't hurt. At the end of the day, most of the problems that come up from side government is just solved by making robots that don't have sentience. If in regards to sentience, we can just take these issues into consideration and adjust them, right, to ensure that they're not hurt. In the worst case, if we have to prioritize humanity, we think we are completely fine with that. On to my principal argument, why do we think sentience does not equate to human experience and does not warrant being granted human experience? 4 levels to this. Firstly, we think regardless of how intelligent robots are, this intelligence is used to only benefit humans. So this is the reason why we make robots extremely fast at calculation. And this, they're not used as human rights because they're used to aid human survival, right? There's a specific purpose that we create these robots for. And at the end of the day, we have to ensure that this purpose is served. Because even with sentience, this does not change. We perhaps add a layer into understanding how these robots work, but this allows for other things like seeing how they interact with their program performance, but does not mean that we should grant them human rights. Is there a POI? Someone keeps talking. Okay, no POI. Second level, why do robots are not integrated into the same ecosystem as us, and this does not mean, and this means that they don't have the same human experience. We think robots are just attached to a power source, right? These the emotions that they have do not grant them the capacity to interact with their ecosystem as humans do, because humans depend on our ecosystem for sustenance. This looks like depending on the environment or depending on the relationships between members of society. These are things that robots do not ever have. Then this hence is not a human experience. If we were to grant them rights in the side of government, for example, rights to vote, they will never see the value of things like voting because they don't value the interactions that we have between humans. They don't value the privilege that you get for being able to choose your leader. Hence, this granting of human rights to robots, even if they are sentient, is not necessary. Third level, we think robots don't have the same obligation and interactions as humans do. The reason why humans have rights like freedom of expression, right to privacy, freedom to assemble, is simply because humans use this to enrich their lives. But when we infringe on the rights of others, we take these rights away. The same should not be extended to robots because they will use these rights for the benefit of themselves, irregardless of whether this infringes on the rights of others or not. It is dangerous to afford these rights to robots because they do not fulfill the capacity that humans do, which is compassion and empathy that we have for other people to ensure that we do not infringe on the rights of them. If these robots were to be granted these rights, there's no guarantee that they will not act in their self-interest as what
Six
we do
minutes.
to people that do this, as what we do to people to do this that take away these rights. Fourth layer to this, impermanence, and this in regards to mortality of humans. We think at the end of the day, human rights are provided because as much as we can extend life, life does not last forever, and we cannot extend the human consciousness forever. We think this allows a specific number of years for humans to enjoy life, but not for robots, because robots can live forever as long as they're attached to a power source. And with more production of robots, we think this just increases the number of robots that exist. In the world of government, you create an imbalance of entities with rights as to how humans have. So humans still have to deal with things like mortality, but robots now have immortality and an access to rights that aren't even granted to humans to certain groups of humans in status quo. Eventually, at the end of the day, we will have to they will impose their rights on us, and there will be a competition for finite resources such as energy, something that will be a big problem
7
in the
minutes.
future. Immortality. In conclusion, we think human rights complement the human experience and not just sentience per se to create a better society. We think sentience plus rights means no obligations, no responsibility, and no expiry date on the side of government. While Deputy Leader will extend the impacts of granting human rights to robots, but at the end of the day, we think sentience is not
Time's
the
up.
metric for robots.
Chairperson, can you hear me?
Sorry for the inconvenience because my laptop is
Sure.
so hang. But they
If
said
at
that
least,
YouTube Live is okay. Um,
it's fine. But it's possible if you don't mind, for every interval, which is 1 minute and 6 minutes, if you can't ring a bell, at least you can clap your hands to ensure that those participants know their marks and know when they're going to POIs and when they're going to stop their speech. At least claps. If you can't ring the bell.
okay.
So, but if you can't, you do let me know.
Okay.
So I will do the
Thank you for the
job for you.
suggestion. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I would like to thank the speaker for their speech. Okay. To continue our debate today, I call upon the Deputy Prime Minister to continue the case for their side.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, the AI is currently evolving, and for sure, in the future, there might be a lot of things that might be happening with the AI itself. So for today's motion, we as the government side do agree with the motion given. So first thing first, I would like to emphasize again the mechanism that have been given by my prime minister that might be not be uh, heard by the opposition side. We the mechanism that have been proposed by the government side is we are not giving those sentinel robot the human right fully. We are There are some restriction and alteration that will be given to the robots to complement them and to protect them as a sentinel robot itself, as a being of sentinel robot. Because this sentinel robot have they are conscious with their existence. So with that, we need to protect this sentinel robot with some humans. We are not giving them a full access of the humans right. We are not giving them the access to vote. We are not giving that we are not giving them things that are not supposed to do by a robots. These will we will control them with with the morality and the ethical values that should be done or should be followed by the robots. We are giving them rights to not being mistreated or misused for a certain points that might be a backlash to us as the stakeholder. So because the stakeholder today is the robot and the human being itself, our burden our burden of proof is giving rights to the robot will give the stakeholder more benefit, which is the humans and the robot itself. So I would like to rebut the point I have given by the leader of the oppositions. I'm sorry. Uh, because the opposition side is denying the sentient robot that the AI that are currently evolving. These sentient robot, these robot that have feelings that one day it might be possible for us to get them fully, because these things are currently evolving, and you cannot deny that these robots that one day may have feelings like how humans, right? Even though it might not be the same, because we humans do are different from robots, but they one day might be able to have feelings like this. So to proceed with my arguments, why the government side want to grant rights to the sentinel robot? Because we want to avoid backlash against humans. If the robot does not have any rights, they might be misused by the human itself. They will be treated cruelly, and the usage of the robots are not controllable. We we the humans, they are good and bad humans in this world. You cannot deny it. They are the good and bad one. We these rights are to protect the our stakeholder, which are the robots and the humans, commonly on the humans, because we are afraid if these robots are used for uh for a bad reason, for a harmful reason, it might affect us, the human being, because human evolving, and they might do things in the future. This sentient robot might go against us, because if it used for a bad purpose, it might do things like that. We are afraid that our stakeholder will be affected, and we also afraid if one day this robot will see human as a threat because they were treated poorly. This conscious being, this robot, they are conscious. The sentient robot is conscious, so they can learn on their own. They can have, they might even can create their own language, which have been it happens already by the Google research, because their conscious robot created their own language that are not exist uh, They did not exist right now. So these we do not know to what extent this AI can evolve. We do not know to what extent this AI can go. No, so thank you. No, thank you. So to grant this human right to the sentinel robot is to benefit the humans and robot itself. And in the long term, we afraid that this technology, this AI might go against us, not as the only the robot against human itself, even the humans and the robot humans against us. So we the government side is afraid for this such thing to happen because we are protecting our stakeholder uh, in the current status quo right now because as you can see this we are the government side want to create a better environment for both the robots and the humans because when the humans and the robot can work together in the future we can create a better future for all of us because these robots are currently in our world. They are not living in another world. They are not living in the Pluto or such thing. They are living in our world. They are living among us. They are not living in the ground or something like that. They are living with us. These robots are with us. We for some people use the sentient robot for some purposes. So these rights that are given to the robots is to protect them from being misused, from being mistreated, from being things like that from being treated like a piece of metal, a piece of if they are we afraid that they might go against us, just turn them off. We might not know what this AI can do in the future. We might not know that maybe one day they can just not shut down if we plug them off. They might be just that. We are afraid that this might go against us humans. So with that, as a conclusion, these rights are needed to protect our stakeholder. With that, I'll raise my case. Thank you.
Okay, so I would like to thank the speaker for remarks. Now I call upon the deputy leader of opposition to continue the case from their.
Thank you. I hope I'm audible. If there's any questions, you can just unmute and ask me. The biggest problems with government teams so far is that they have yet to reconcile a majority of their case regarding the equating sentience with rights. So opposition concedes that when a being or an entity becomes sentient, it means that it is susceptible to emotions like sadness or pain or the capacity to understand that they are being exploited. These are things that I think the Deputy Prime Minister and Prime Minister are right. But whether this means that they should have access to the expansive rights of human beings is a completely different question. Because Catherine already told you why it is possible for us to consider and value the emotions that these robots may face in the future due to their sentience, and we can accommodate for these feelings or for these responses. So let's say if a robot, because right now we abuse and exploit mechanical components even if they are suffering wear and tear because they are unable to communicate or respond, that they feel exploited or they feel abused. But should this change in the future, we can accommodate by replacing and ensuring that there are shifts for individuals to still provide, for entities or robots to provide for their programming without having to overwork them. If they are uncomfortable with the nature in which they are programmed to do, then what we can do is we can change the nature of programming for that specific component. These are all things that are possible that we can do, just like how we accommodate certain types of rights to animals. Like if you are not allowed to commit pet abuse, you're not allowed to violate domesticated animals, you're not allowed to keep endangered species as pets, are all examples of how we avoid we accommodate certain amount of rights for certain sentient beings, but not full expansive approaches. For example, we don't grant animals the freedom to speak, the freedom to assemble, the freedom to religion, the right to privacy. The second problem is when DPM tells you that they don't want to grant rights to robots like voting. This is a
Your eye,
problem.
please. Your eye,
Uh,
please.
yes.
Explanation to what you mean by not granting animals right to religion and speech, because if we are not mistaken, we do not cater the same rights as animals. Thank you.
That's my point. The fact that animals do not have access to these rights but have access to other rights that are more appropriate to them means that we can do the same thing for robots. It does not mean that just because we don't afford these sentient robots these rights, it means that they will not have any opportunity to express their concerns. Moving on, the second thing is about the fact that they don't want to give the right to vote or any human activity right to these robots. This is dangerous because the right to vote is a protected right for all human beings in every democratic nation. So then we must ask the question to government to reconcile and explain to us what are the specific rights that they want robots to have, robots not to have, and whether it can still fulfill the definition of human rights. We argue that it is not, and they must reconcile this fact in the later speeches. And finally, is about designing them to have our moral standard, or designing these robots to be trustworthy. This completely negates the value of sentience. The value of sentience is that you are able to have consciousness to think. You're able to have consciousness to decide how you want to utilize your programming. If we are designing them to fulfill a specific performance, like to uphold our moral standard or to become trustworthy, then there's no value of being sentient. It's akin to being born and then to be trained to be a specific vocation and then still claiming you have specific freedoms, which is just not true. Moving to argumentation about why human rights is created for the fair distribution of finite resources. I think the biggest difference between sentient robots and humans are not only the fact that we experience touch or experience interactions differently, but also our value systems. Robots communicate in the language of zeros and ones. This means that it will have limited capacity to communicate with human feeling depending on context and nuance. This is why the ultimate performance or the ultimate goal of robotics isn't to maintain or sustain relationships, isn't to get married or to continue the species. It's to create production. It's to measure how much it can do within a specific frame of time. That's why the goal is always utility. That's why you measure the value of a robot by looking at its output. These are all value systems that the robots have in status quo. But this contravenes and contradicts as to why human rights was given in the first place. And if we look at examples of human rights and how they are utilized throughout the period of time, it looks like minorities, or it looks like discriminated characteristics or minorities to utilize these rights to get better and equitable rights. The African Americans in the 1960s that fought for the right to vote, the many waves of women who fight for better rights in feminism in different contexts and nuances, the religious fight that is happening in Palestine for these individuals to gain simple access to things like clean water and more appropriate energy sources. These are all used in the void of utility or product. We don't care whether because they are part of a minority group, they are not useful to the community. We don't care that if a person is disabled or old, they shouldn't be allowed to vote simply because they have nothing to contribute. they are still afforded the same amount of rights because of the fact that they are simply human. They have these experiences, and we value the fact that they can engage and access these experiences, and that's why they're given these rights. There are two problems that this creates when we afford the same things to robots. The first is conflict of value, which means that they're going to prioritize utility over all these other values that I talked about, which is not what human rights are for. But the second is, as we continue for robots to grow and robots become immortal to some extent, it means that we are taking away valuable finite resource from the earth and prioritizing robots to create their power source, to create their utility goals, which comes at the expense of human beings who have complete human experience. For those reasons, very proud to oppose.
Okay. I would like to thank the speaker for their beautiful remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, and the honorable adjudicators, I shall now call upon the government whip to rebut.
One, one, two, three. Mom, why the robots are shooting at us? Well, it is because in 2021, the opposition actually declined human rights to the robots. Ladies and gentlemen, we are currently living in a world where sentient robots are developing, are evolving. You know what sentient robot is? The opposition. Sentient robot is actually an artificial conscious, artificial intelligence that are evolving. They are receiving consciousness right now. They are receiving consciousness right now. Like my deputy prime minister said, she said that currently in Google Research Lab, the robots are actually speaking any word that we don't know, that we don't understand because they are talking to each other. So, with that, Assalamualaikum and very good evening, I bid to all. So, I would like to answer a few questions from the LO. She said that when you turn off their plug, then they will turn off. Well, in the future, right, these artificial conscious, they can actually develop into more things that we couldn't imagine. Have you imagined in 2009? Can you imagine the artificial intelligence, or can you imagine a robots can actually talk in their own language? No, we cannot. We cannot know that because we cannot imagine. Can you imagine in 1991 that we can actually talk with the voice video call right now? Can we actually debating through video call? No, we cannot. So this has proved to you, clearly proved to you that the technology are evolving. And I don't know why the leader of opposition actually denying that sentient robot actually can exist in this world in the future. So the opposition, we the government actually think that these robots can actually evolve into something that we don't know. So now they are currently exist in this world. There's not many, but they exist. Why they exist? The first thing is why they exist. They exist because they complement the humans. So that's why they are here. So they're helping the humans. They are helping the humans. And we are the creator of these sentient robots. So who going to take care of this robot welfare other than the creator itself? If we do not take care of them, then who will take care of them? The animals? No, we have to take care of them. So to avoid, like my deputy prime minister said, to avoid about the robots versus humans war, we have to give them the rights. We have to give them the humans right. And I don't know why your deputy L was saying that the humans right evolve more to voting. Well, does foreigner in our country can actually vote for our leader? Bangladesh are here in our country. Many of them working in our country. They're receiving money from our country, but can they vote? No, ladies and gentlemen, they cannot vote. So that is why we excluded the artificial conscious or the sentient robots to not vote. Because of what? Because of they are not the people of our country. You know, you have to understand that. And that is why my prime minister already stated that voting is cannot. And we already, and according to Universal Declaration of Human Rights, there are top 5 of human rights that humans are supposed to have, and the rights are, and 3 of that's right we want to give it to robots. What is the right? First, freedom of slavery. Second, freedom of torture. Third, freedom of freedom of receive treatment. Why freedom of receive treatment is very important to sentient robot? Because robots can get hurt. They can feel pain. So they are technically they are capable of feeling pain. They are capable to being unfunctioned, so they can have that. So they must receive treatment from the engineer, not by the doctor, because they are robots. So we are not giving all humans right are here that exist in this world. The prime minister already stated we're going to give you the humans right, to give the robots the humans right with some restriction. There are few humans right that they can receive, and few humans right that they cannot receive. And I don't know why the leader opposition actually bring up the topic of animals' rights. Even now, we don't know what is the animal rights. No one's know what the exact animals' right. We keep on debating on that. And I don't know why you include that in this debate, because now we're talking about AI. And the prime minister are denying sentient robots are actually here. So basically, your arguments are out already, okay? And then she said that if they are able to have a war, then unplug them. Wow! The robots feel pain. The robot feel grief. The robot has joy. The robot happiness. So one day, if you unplug the robots without their permission, there might be a murder. You are murdering a robot right now because you unplugged them. Ladies and gentlemen, in our world, in the government world right now, we are talking about artificial conscious or the sentient robot which can be feel joy, grief, pain, angriness, and everything that humans can actually feel. So imagine, right? Imagine in a world where you decline the robot humans right now, and in a world in long-term effect, what could happen? The robot will feel unappreciated because you keep on unplug when you need them. And when you don't need them, you just unplug them and let them go and let them die. So, ladies and gentlemen, imagine in this world, we are going to against the robots because the robot is keep evolving, you know. The artificial conscious are already here in our current status quo. So the stakeholder right now is humans and the sentient robots. So both of these stakeholders, the good government are trying to provide them a good welfare. Imagine now, if we only take care of the humans, right? Only take care of the humans or our stakeholder, the humans only, and forget the robot stakeholder, then that will backlash the humans, because in our prime minister said about the short-term event on the creating a better life interaction with both humans and robots. Imagine in your world you do not have that interaction, then how can the robot complement us? Then how can the robots actually can help us to live in a better world? And then my deputy prime minister said about avoid backlash, a robot against war, a robot against humans war. Well, avoid backlash because now we're not giving them the rights. We are treating them like a slave. We are treating them for our benefit only. We do not think about them at all. Imagine in the future, they will definitely go against us because of what? Because we treated them badly. Now, humans also, if they did not treated good, they will backlash us. Many have shown you, many war happen because of that. Many will happen because of that. But once we give the human right to them, they stop. We live in peaceful. And that's what you want. In long-term effect, that is the long-term effect. And I don't understand why the opposition are actually denying that. So we, as a good government, think that is a better world will be created if the opposition stand with us and agree that the sentient on board are deserve the human right. With that, I've never have been this proud to propose. Thank you.
Okay. I will
like to thank the speaker for their speech. It's now that it is now time to listen to the rebuttals of the opposition week.
Okay. Can I confirm if I'm audible? Okay. Before I start, can I just have one request? To the chairperson, Afrika, can you mute because sometimes there's
Yes.
sound coming from. Yeah. Sorry. So sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
All right. Okay.
I will unmute
Okay. Yeah.
when the time the point.
Okay. Okay. Mom, why are the robots shooting at me and killing us, like hunting us down in 2021? The answer to that is simple. It's because government team acknowledges that robots can be dangerous, but instead solve that problem by giving them more rights, giving them rights to shoot us, rights to get a gun in the first place, right to violently protest. If you acknowledge that they can be a threat in the future, we on opposition don't give them human rights that embolden them even more, that give them more political capacity, that give them more power to hunt and dominate us down. We draw the line from very early to say that they are not humans and we should treat them as such. Judge, there are two issues in this debate. First, on principle and ethical reasons whether or not we ought to do this, and second, on practical reasons and like outcomes or whether or not we do this. Before talking about that, I just have one rebuttal to the government team. Judge, just note, government team was saying that a lot of development of AI and robots stems from sentience and welfare. This isn't true because to a large extent on opposition's world, we will also support evolution of robots. We will also, for example, support using military drones in war that shoot people instead of sending actual soldiers. We also support machineries that are upgraded and better technology that are used in factories. It is unfair for government to say in our world they'll have absolutely no development of AI because we refuse to give them human rights. The point here is we don't give them human rights to embolden them even more because of the practical outcomes that can happen and the principal distinction of they are not humans. That does not mean that we do not support the development of AI. We absolutely support the development of AI. We think that we want to complement, but in the event that it's ambiguous and with regards to the power that it can dominate us, we draw the line and say we don't want you to get human rights because it's more dangerous. I think that's the debate and that's the moral dilemma that we are facing. So first, on the principal issue of why we don't do this, I think the prelude to this issue is what rights can we accommodate and what rights can we account to. And this is the most important issue because it was the crux of this debate. Just I agree to some extent this debate was a parallel because government team was saying we give things like protection and that's the rights that we want to give. And opposition also defends that. So where is the clash? Who breaks the deadlock? I will do that for you. Panel, the motion says this house will give human rights to sentient robots. That is not the fact that we give them rights in existence. What does this mean? Opposition supports giving robots rights. We don't support giving robots human rights. So government team has to defend a world in which they want to award rights that are similar towards what rights we give towards humans. It is unfair for them to say we don't do things like giving them the right to vote. So when do you give them rights that are more human-centric? Because if the debate isn't about this house to give rights to sentient robots, it's about giving human rights. And I'll explain to you why the animal analysis is important in this debate because we draw the distinction between human and animals. But we think government team didn't fulfill their burden because to a large extent they haven't proved to us why is it beneficial for them to give human rights to animals other than just rights which we award as well in opposition's world. But before moving on, I'll take a POI quickly. Go for it, the POI. Okay, now mind. Their argument was that Bangladeshi workers come here, they don't have the right to vote. But you still have the human right to vote in your country. Bangladeshis can vote in their country. The debate is about whether or not we award those rights to robots as well, whether the extension of human principles and rights should be awarded to robots as well. And there's something that government team failed to propose. So on this main idea of what rights do we award, I think the debate has to a large extent wasn't charitable that the fact that we still award some levels of protection rights in our world, but not human rights. So why do we think that even in the worst case, let's say in my speech, I'm going to bite the bullet and say we treat them like shit. I'll tell you why the trade-off is something that is much better. First reason, to a large extent, humans have been superior and we respect that hierarchy. The fact that animals, for example, are also sentient beings, but we still commodify them as pets. We still consume animals as part of meat consumption. We still have active commodifying of animals in like things like entertainment, like bullfights, cockerel fights. All of these shows, although it's unfortunate, we have always been selfish. Humans have always retrospectively prioritized our end at the hierarchy, and we prioritize our interests and our welfare to a large extent, and it's okay to trade off other levels of animals, like other animals and other beings that are inferior to us. That's why we do animal testing as well. Secondly, it's important to note that human experience and accountability is something that is important. No judge, while they can say that they have sentient being and they have emotions, they can't generate accountability. Humans can, because, for example, law that punish us, law that instills fear in us, we are scared to because they say they are good and bad humans. Sure, but we have legal systems to regulate them and make them accountable. If you break the law, we will punish you in jail. We even have death sentence, for example. But this won't be applicable towards robots as well, at all, because they have a programmer that inputs all the data and computer statistics that is programmed towards them. Even if they have emotions, that doesn't translate into them understanding principles of common humanity, understanding principles of harmony, understanding principles of unity. On that ground, we would err on the side of giving only humans who know human experiences and the idea of communality human rights. Third, let's talk about principles of AI. We think the debate has to look that AI, to a large extent, has helped us in the past and is helping us right now. But we draw the line when AI is to some extent replacing the need for humans or getting same levels of treatment as humans get. The fact that when it comes to AI, we have like had discussions on banning AI that can create art. Although it's perfect, it can create art that is so technically perfect, probably better than Mona Lisa, we still ban it because it replaces the whole need of humans creating art. Or the fact that we also, to a large extent, also, like when it comes to factories, I'm being echoed, so please mute. Also in circumstances of factories where there may be robots that can replace the whole need of human labor, we also don't do that because it takes away the need for humans to work. So in circumstances where it's ambiguous and the role of robots may replace humans or be equal to us, we will always err on the side of prioritizing human needs because we are also suffering, and we think humans naturally have a limited lifespan, natural moral obligation towards our ecosystem. We think computational systems in robots can never account towards the moral humanity aspect that humans have. This is very important because principally we think it's okay for humans only to be awarded this right. Let's talk about practical, and this is important. I think we already told you a lot of people are suffering all around the world. People are being discriminated, killed, and at every second as we speak, individuals are suffering. It is wrong for them to give award rights to robots right now simply because there are other humans that are suffering out there. Final note that to give rights towards robots isn't a one-day process. Probably in democratic countries, it's a constitutional process where you go through bills, you go through public debate, parliament, and forums. All this takes a lot of time for us to award this right. Let's allocate all these resources into helping the poor, helping the suffering and the true victims of globalization. I think that should be the focus and not on robots to a large extent. For all those reasons, we're very proud to oppose. So,
Okay. Now that we have heard all the three speakers from both teams, we should take a break. We should take a short break for 1 minute. And during this time, both the government and the opposition teams will prepare their reply speech. Hello?
Yes, is the time over? Can I
Yes, the
start?
time's over.
Okay, can I start speaking?
Yeah, Chairperson, are you okay? Okay, wait for.
Yes, no problem.
So, Chairpersons, we can start if you're ready, if you are fine already. Oh,
No?
Chairperson, are you there? So yes, okay, I just give her around 30 seconds more. If she doesn't respond, we just start.
Okay.
Sorry.
My laptop is very laggy.
Sure.
So the time of 1 minute has ended. I should now invite the second opposition speaker from the opposition team to the meeting. Hello? Hello?
Yeah, yeah,
Hello?
can hear you, can hear you. No problem. Don't worry about it. Okay. The reason why opposition takes this debate is based on two fundamental reasons. The first is answering the question of whether non-humans deserve human rights. And we tell you that they don't. And I'm going to evaluate this point on comparison with how government argued this. I think opposition provided enough analysis to explain why the privileges of human rights are ones that are unique to individuals or entities that can experience the same things that humans do. Because the privileges and benefits that you receive are ones that are humongous, have consequential impact, and can change the course of how society behaves. That's why the rights to the rights to speech, assembly, religion, privacy, things like the law, marriage, owning property are all aspects of human rights that are unique to individuals who have the four key factors of what it means to be a human, which is to be interdependent, to have obligations, to be responsible, and to be impermanent. So the response we get from government is that there are certain groups, there are certain demographics of human beings that don't experience these rights. And we argue to you that is true, and that is regrettable, and that's why they should be prioritized. So the fact that Bangladeshis can't vote in Malaysia is a problem that we can regret and eventually resolve. But that does not automatically mean that it can equate to non-human beings accessing the same right. Second question. The next question is then, are robots humans? If opposition successfully proves that robots, just because they are sentient, are not capable of human experience, then it automatically means that they don't deserve rights. Because the preliminary question is that individuals who don't share human experience don't deserve these rights. What do we get from both sides? Opposition acknowledges and concedes to government's argument about how sentient robots will have feelings, and as technology develops, we don't know what they are capable of doing. The response to this is, first, we understand that, and we can provide them with auxiliary rights that can take their sentience into consideration. That does not mean we should give them complete and unexhaustive human rights. The second question of we don't know what they are capable of yet is not what this debate is about. This debate is not asking us to measure what robots who are sentient would look like, 100 years from now. It is asking us to measure in current stage of human emotion, should it be granted rights? The answer is no, because they don't share all the other experiences that we tell you is mandatory to enjoy the privileges of human rights. The final issue is impacts. And the biggest impact government has is twofold. The first is it is unethical and not right to deny and to subject them to slavery. I think we already reconcile this by saying that we can consider their feelings into play and accommodate. But the second is right now at this stage, the priority is human hierarchy. It does not mean that pulling the plug of a robot is the same as murdering a human being. But secondly, and more importantly, the issue of uprising. The fact that they will now, because they are not respecting their wishes, they can rise against human beings. They don't do a better job of it either, because if they are going to deny robots from voting because they are not as equal as human beings, but granting them all other types of rights, you're giving them the power to do exactly what they assume is going to be the worst case scenario, which is giving them the capacity to rise against human beings, which we are able to avoid by denying them these rights. But ultimately, the bigger impact is on one side opposition. The fact that you have to distribute human resources
Time's
unequitably to
up.
individuals who still don't have human resources. The fact that human robots are immortal and it will be difficult to continue to support them. For those reasons, very proud to oppose.
Okay. Uh, I would like to thank the speaker for that speech. I shall now call upon the Prime Minister from the government team to deliver their reply speech.
In 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, if it's what we know about the opposition is that they are not aware of how evolving the AI and artificial intelligence and artificial conscious is evolving right now. Deep learning, machine learning, Turing tests are being conducted, ladies and gentlemen, and these humanoid robots have shown an impressive results that how human-like they are. This is the current status, ladies and gentlemen. This is the current world looks like. These robots have shown impressive results that they can feel, they can be sentient, just like us. Which is why we, the government team, strongly agree with this motion, ladies and gentlemen. Now, before I move on, let's see what the opposition had to say. They tried to justify themselves by saying like how animal rights, democracy, and replacing humans and all that. But we're not for that, ladies and gentlemen. We're here for the benefits of our stakeholders in the long term, ladies and gentlemen. How can the opposition say that it will not be affected in the long run? Ladies and gentlemen, AI is evolving. Artificial consciousness is evolving, which is why we should think ahead. We should think for the future. We have stated to you that with the proper mechanisms done, we are able to provide human rights like freedom of discrimination, freedom of torture, freedom of slavery. Why? Because we do not want our humankind to misuse these robots. And what will happen if you misuse these robots? These robots have sentient, right? They have consciousness. One day or another, they're going to backlash on us. They're going to turn their backs on us, which is what we do not want in the long term. We want our stakeholders here, our robots and our humankind, to work together. We want them to complement each other, which is what we are here. That is our burden of proof today. We will show you how providing human rights to sentient robots will benefit our stakeholders today, which is what also the opposition has failed to provide us. They have failed to testify their burden of proof today, like how sentient robots can become superior to humans, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let me reconstruct back that our short term here is to create a better life interaction. And for the long term, with the evolving artificial consciousness, we want to avoid a robot-human war. Because why? We've already granted, we humans already granted them thoughts. We've already granted them consciousness to think, to feel pain, to feel anger and sadness, happiness. We've already granted them that. So why shouldn't we grant them human rights? Like freedom of slavery. That's what we're doing right now, which the opposition did not deny. We humans are selfish. Yes, which is why we want to protect our humans too, because we are selfish. we think we deserve everything and misuse everything we see, which is what we don't want in the long term. Because the more we misuse, the more we treat something like slavery, the more chances it has for it to turn its back against us. Now, when my whip has said, "Mom, why the robot shooting? Why are the robots killing us? Why are they shooting us?" Well, because the opposition today did not take care of the welfare of the robots. They're denying these robots feelings, thinking that they're so superior. They are scared that these robots will step on them, which is why we believe that we strongly propose to you, we gladly propose to you this mechanism for our world. We want a world where humans and robots can complement each other instead of doing wars that one is superior than the other. With that, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Please consider us for the side of today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have now come to the end of the debate. Debaters are asked to remain in this room while waiting for the adjudicators to make a decision. Adjudicators are reminded to move to the adjudicators discussion room in the
Hello, is everyone here?
is here.
Yeah, let me see. All right, mantap. So, UniKL chairpersons, are you guys here?
Unique House here.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Okay. Wait, I will waiting for the other judge to get into this thing. So, so that before I go further to the decision, I will just explain on how I would deliver my results lah. So first, I will give the results, and second, I will give my general feedbacks, and if you guys need, so I will give personal feedbacks to each of you. So do you guys need personal feedback? Because like some debaters they just want to go for general feedback. So I would like to know whether you guys need personal feedback or not.
Maybe we can approach you.
Yeah.
Maybe
Oh.
we could like approach you after the debate and you can share us your contact number maybe. That would be better
Yeah,
for
sure.
us all, I guess. Okay.
Yeah, sure, no
So
problem.
now maybe
So I will,
we all prefer the general feedback.
sure. So same goes for UM.
Alright, thank you.
So for UM, are you guys for personal feedback
Yeah.
or after session?
After session, if we have any questions.
All right. Good, nice. So, Kavila, are you already here? So somehow Kavila couldn't make it. It's fine. So, but just to avoid any confusions, Kavila is just a trainee judge. So you guys don't worry. The judgment is solely on me as the chair of this round. So there is no like 2-0 things lah. So it's a single chair rule. So don't worry about this matter. So okay, for the result. So first of all, congratulations for a very good debate from both sides. So I learned something new today about sentient robots from both sides. So for the result. So what I would say first, the debate is a very close debate. It's a very hard to decide which side is going to win. But after careful consideration and after careful discussion, I will give the wins to the opposition sides, which is UM. So before I go further to general feedbacks and why I'm going to my verdicts to UM, right? So the reason is that we need to look into the motion first. The motions here, there's two important elements, which is the human rights and also the sentient robots. So throughout the debates, I get the meanings of sentient robots. I get the meanings of human rights. But the thing is, I need to collect those meanings from your speech. I not really get it from the very first speech of your PMs or from your LO. Yeah, you did try to explain, but it wasn't characterized really well. So what I need to know is what is a what is a human rights? What are the characterizations of human rights that need human right? What is makes difference from other rights that have been mentioned by the opposition side? What is makes different from the animal rights, from the foreigners' right and whatsoever? What is the difference thing on this matter? And then sentient robots. What makes it different from the other robots? So what makes it so different until that these robots can actually receive such human rights? Because like I was told from the whole speech that the sentient robot is something that self-conscious. They have their own minds. They can decide by their own because of their intelligence things. So yeah, I can get this matter. But the thing is, like, does a normal robot doesn't have any eye? So this thing is, I might have knowledge on this matter, but as educators, I couldn't presume that this kind of things. You need to inform me for me to give you marks, for me to give you credits on this matter. If you guys don't inform me, so I couldn't give you any credit on this matter. But it wasn't. But I will say that it wasn't something that really big to say first lah. So the thing is, so we go first on the first elements of the human rights. So PM, you did mention to me there are three rights that you wanted to advocate. First, right to freedom, freedom of slavery, freedom of tortures, and access to treatment, right? So I accept that it's a very strong point and it's something that acceptable from your side. But the thing is, the problems come from the next sentence, which is you say that you wanted to make some modifications and alterations with regards to this some morality values and so on. But the thing is, it's end there. So what kind of modification and alterations that you're going to consider? What are the procedures? How are you going to ensure that okay, the robots are going to have this such of human rights are possible to receive, are possible to be given to the sentient robots, are possible to be done, are possible not to be violated by these sentient robots. So what are the things that being parts of your considerations in giving such rights to the sentient robots? Yeah, you have reasons, but you don't have any way to actually confirm that rights I will not be violated at the end of the day. So why am I saying is that such modification and authorizations mechanism is really important here, because when you guys don't really characterize this mechanism well, the side, which is the opposition side, they will come up with a lot of rights, other rights, which is right to vote, right to speech, free, a lot of other rights that belongs to humans, because from their perspective, because as long as this whole things as are human rights means that this is what the debate is all about, because there is no mechanism provided by your side to actually reject other human rights that we have currently in the current status quo. Because in the current status quo, as a humans, we have a lot of rights to be protected. Because just now you prefers on one declarations, and even the thing is like in the real world, we have 9 documents of about humans' right, and in that things we have a tons of humans' right that can be mentioned, which is tons of it already been mentioned by the opposition side. So that's the things that uh, the, the the bad part of the mechanism lah. So because you guys don't really address on the mechanism part, and then on the stakeholders, I would say both sides did really well in addressing stakeholders, because okay, why I wanted to protect this order and how these stakeholders were going to receive benefits from my protections. So both sides did really well, but the thing is, I need to take a look on the worst case scenario. Which side will provide a least worst case scenario? So on UM side, so even if we don't grant them such human rights, at least if they feel difficulties that government side propose, which are they will feel like being a slave, they will feel like they're being tortured and whatsoever, we can reduce their workload by adding a new robot. We can reduce by new workloads by modifying these robots. So in their worst case scenarios, yeah, they might didn't get such rights, but at least we going, yeah, the stakeholders still protect us by having some modifications at the end of the day. But on your side, you just you give them rights, and then you give them the same right as the humans have, even though there are some restrictions and modifications that will be made in the futures. But the thing is, such possibility that what the opposition side mentioned, which is the points of accountability, the points of resources, the points of the lifespan and whatsoever. These kind of things will bring a much worse situation to humans at the end of the days in the futures. So that's the things that makes me more inclined to give the win to the opposition sides. And the things that I think really give the opposition sides opposition side a really good points here is that because you wanted to say that to improve your mechanism, you wanted to make sure you wanted to design the robot to be more trustworthy, you wanted to design the robot to be more human and whatsoever, to ensure that there is no such thing as that they try to violate, and the points of accountabilities will not be raised up in the futures. But the thing is, the opposition sides, they come out from their DLO saying that okay, if we design them to be trustworthy, you design them to be human and whatsoever, you will negate the value of sentient robot. So when you negate when they lose these values, they couldn't be considered as a sentient robot anymore. So thus they're actually able to receive such rights that you try to propose today. And one more thing that I would like to I want to say about the opinion side, you guys are too focused on the war of between humans and robot. Like maybe if possible, you guys can actually propose me any values that any bad things that why this kind of right should be given instead of only relying on one point, which is human versus robot, the war between human versus robot, because you guys only relying on this point from your first speaker until your last speaker. So because okay, even if I accept, because I accept your arguments, you need to prove to me why is it so dire for us to avoid this war. Why is so dire for what are the bad effect of this war towards humans? How much the destruction that we will receive from this war, and why this such evolution of the robot will lead to this kind of war. So these kind of things are not being really characterized in the government speech. While the opposition side, I wouldn't say you guys able to rebut, but you barely able to touch the point, which is they say, okay, if there is a war, okay, at least we can if there is a possibility of war, we can we can turn off the robot, so I accept that point. But the points that I would say stand the most is that when we talk about the modifications and about the alterations of the robots, in case there are in case the sentient robot face certain difficulties. So if we're able to modify the robots and we're able to tweak the robots, so at least in the future, at least there will be no dissatisfaction coming from the robots, and hence the war could be avoided at the end of the day. So, but the thing is, that's something that very slightly touched by the opposition side, which is I hope being able to explain more in the future lah. And then for the I will go for and then for the government's opposition side, I would say your first speaker really able to like straight up the first speaker able to make it like, okay, what's going to talk about today, how your points are really structures, but the thing is like I think it's very on the surface, because like you should characterize more. For example, like you talk about impermanent, right, sorry, but you talk about the ecosystem of the ecosystem, right? So I want to hear more about the ecosystem. Like you talk about right to votes, humans sorry, they will use their right to abuse such things, right? So what are the possibility of such what are the possibility of the robots will abuse this kind of rights in the ecosystem? Why is so important for you to avoid such ecosystem? I wanted to hear more from the opposition side about this matter. And then for the last point that I would say is that, sorry, my point, just like, and then the biggest part of the because the biggest part, I would say the biggest problem from the government side coming from the second speaker, while you are simply repeating what your first speaker are talking about, which is the backslash to human, which is about the possible war that might happen in the future, which is already explained by your first speaker. And then I would accept the points, but the thing is that you are talking about the same matter. So there's nothing much that I could give credits on the second speaker from the government side. So I think that's all from me. Yeah. So anything else, you can actually come back to me after session lah. I will give the numbers in the chat.
Thank you, Ame. Appreciate
no
it.
Thank you so much.
All the best, guys.
Congrats, UM. An honor to debate with you guys.
Thank you.
Guys.
Congratulations.
Congratulations
Okay, good job,
to the best winning team. And then, okay, everyone. Okay, with that, the House of Parliament is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for participating. See you guys later.